This is my spoon I created in Fusion 360. I've created this blue bit here as a plastic handle, and I've also added my initials into it, which have a different appearance. That's just to make the part stand out. I think it looks pretty good. So I started off with the top plane. I created this arc here using the spline geometry tool. I used the projector tool to get all of these lines here. To create this area, I also used the spline tool. It was pretty simple, just connecting things up. To create the lip, I used the projection tool. I projected this outwards bit here down onto this plane. And to create the plane, I created a plane at an angle on this line here and just had the angle at 0 degrees to create a horizontal plane. Then I created a construction plane on this line here at 90 degrees, and I used the intersect tool to create these 3 points, at which I used the spline tool to create this line here. And I did the same for the front plane. I then created a construction plane on this line at 90 degrees, and I created this line by using the projection tool of these points here. I then did the same thing at the bottom, and I had to draw the line up here and then project down. So then I used the patch tool on this area here. I selected each one of these lines, which created a patch across this, and then I selected these lines here to create the overall spoon shape. To create the handle, I selected this line here, and this line here. I also selected this line here so that the handle would be perfectly flat all the way up. Then I used the thicken tool to thicken the spoon. Then I used the fillet tool to make sure this bit is a nice curve. I also made the decision not to fillet this side here, as a spoon usually has a sharp edge on the end and not a rounded edge all the way around. After using the patching tool, I used the trimming tool to create the curve here, matching the curve on this sketch here. Then I decided to create a handle. To create my handle, I had to create a new sketch on the horizontal plane. I didn't do anything specific with the geometry. It was just me trying to get a relative design that worked, that I thought would be good. I used the front plane to project this line onto this sketch here, and used the dimension tool to find the angle between the horizontal and this line here, which then allowed me to project the top sketch onto the surface of the spoon. Then I created this sketch here to create the third dimension of the spoon handle. And as you can see, this bit's a bit rough. That's just because of some problems that I'll explain later on. One of the problems I encountered was when creating this bit here, I wanted to use the patch tool and click on these arches here to create the spoon handle. However, this messed up the geometry and made it look really weird. It had little bits sticking out on it. If I just show here, this bit here, it had little lumps on it and it was really weird. So I scratched that idea. Instead, I created this sketch here. I used the intersect tool on each one of these arches to find the points, and then I connected the dots using the spline geometry tool. Because I was still having problems with the patch tool, I decided to use this line here to create a construction plane. Then I created this design here, which allows me to use the patch tool to create this. After creating this using the patching tool, I needed to mirror it, so I selected one of my planes and I used that to mirror it and created this sketch here. This completed the handle design, however I wasn't happy with the sharp edges. When I thickened this handle, I had a problem with that these edges here would come out. So you'd have this line coming out here and then it goes down, and a line coming out here and then it goes down, and you had this gap in between. So I used the loft tool to create this section here, which helped bridge the gap. So then I had this solid surface here, and I've again used the fillet tool to create a nice smooth transition between all these three objects. After creating the spoon handle, I created this sketch here that has my initials so that I could carve them into the handle. Then I used a split body tool so that I could carve the initials onto the handle. After using the split body tool, I extruded my initials by 2mm just to make sure they had some depth and to make it look a bit nicer. Once everything was complete, I changed the appearance of the handle to be plastic and my initials to be wood just to add some contrast. I also made the physical material of my spoon titanium just so it can last longer and have the wow factor of being titanium.